all through my years at Banbury, there were these little signs or little placards that would be up somewhere that was just a list of like rights and responsibilities of being at Banbury, that was just very much kind of outlining how to live in community with other people and how to do so in a respectful way. And there was never really an attitude that anyone's complaint or anyone's problem that they were having was invalid for any reason. It was always kind of met with a need to try and find a good resolution to everything.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
There's a lot. One of the things that was always so nice was that the ratio of students to teachers is really conducive to actually getting the support that you need. That there's almost always someone available that if you're having trouble with a particular question, you can go up, you can ask about it. But the other thing that was super helpful to me, and I think super helpful in terms of transitioning from a school learning environment to learning at university, is that so much of what you're doing is being given the tools to learn, being given the tools to do the work, and then the support is available, but the work is up to you to do it, as opposed to just kind of being held on task by somebody else, which meant that there would be like, sometimes I could just power through like 3 units of something in like 2 weeks. And that wasn't a problem because I wasn't being held back to anyone else's pace. And then if I needed, time to slow down and, really grasp a concept, I had that time available to me because it was kind of flexible. And that was incredibly useful, both for just learning subjects in general, but also just in terms of developing good work practices and being able to try and be accountable to yourself instead of just to a higher authority. I mean, it's hard to say, as you say, because I don't actually have direct personal experience. I think it's from listening to my friends talk about their experiences in schools, it feels like a much kind of closer knit community. You kind of get to know everyone a little bit. You really get to have good working relationships with the teachers because they're available to help and they're not just kind of separate from you. But you can actually really work together to try and create a course or a working model that works really well for you. So it means that it's a small school. You kind of know everyone. It's really kind of tight knit, and yeah, it's just yeah. I think that more or less encapsulates it. Accommodating. I know friendly seems a bit like a kind of generic catch-all, but I would probably apply that as well. And it's colorful. It's got just a real mix of perspectives and approaches to things because it very much embraces nonconformity. So I don't know if that encapsulates the answer you were looking for. So much of why the school was so effective for me was because it was very flexible in terms of being able to accommodate, like, I think one of the examples that my mom always liked to use when I was little, I was one of those kids that just had energy coming out my ears. I couldn't sit still for more than like 5 minutes. I was always doing something. And that was never a problem when I was in those younger grades because I could still be doing work. I was just sometimes be doing it like lying on the floor or sitting on a couch or something. And that was very much the teacher's attitude, was like, hey, if that's what she needs to be doing while she's learning, that's totally fine. It wasn't this need to kind of make everything be a standard way. but it could kind of look at people's idiosyncrasies and look at their diverse needs and just be able to say, okay, well, what can we do to make sure that you can still get the full learning experience without actually hampering who you are as a person or trying to constrain who you are as a person. I feel like there was just a kind of running element of people who were just very self-possessed, of people who either had or were coming into a really clear understanding of themselves. And I think a lot of that probably has to do with that whole idea of being accountable to yourself, that your teachers are there to help you accomplish things, but what you accomplish and how you accomplish it is really kind of up to you. And so I think it's both tends to attract those kind of people and tends to encourage those traits, that ability to understand yourself and understand your own needs. I think probably respect was probably the biggest one throughout all through my years at Banbury. There were these little signs or little placards that would be up somewhere that was just a list of like rights and responsibilities of being at Banbury, that was just very much kind of outlining how to live in community with other people and how to do so in a respectful way. And there was never really an attitude that anyone's complaint or anyone's problem that they were having was invalid for any reason. It was always kind of met with a need to try and find a good resolution to everything. And I remember so many times when I would have a problem with anyone, or I know even one of my mom's favorite stories is when my sister, I think, was in grade 3 or 4. Her class just really didn't like the way that their gym teacher was approaching their classes. And so they all kind of got together and wrote a letter to Diane to say, hey, we need to meet and talk about this. And they did. And they just had a respectful conversation with all the kids of the class and Diane and the gym teacher. And he changed his teaching style just because they sat down and had this frank conversation. And it wasn't just a matter of like, no, you've just got to put up with it, or you've just got to, not complain. I think it's a school that has a very kind of casual and relaxed vibe when you first come into it. And it's very easy to come in and it seems like maybe not a lot is happening, because a lot of the time people will just be working quietly, or people will be kind of spread out in different rooms and doing different things. And it doesn't always have the sense that something is happening. Of course, there are times when it feels like a lot of stuff is happening, but I think a lot of it is just that there's a very kind of relaxed vibe to the school at most of the time, of just people being allowed to do their own thing, which can sometimes seem a little bit like nothing is happening. Yeah, there's probably a lot of things that I could point to just because I was there for so long. That idea of self-accountability, I think, is probably one of the biggest ones, of just being able to, as actually engage honestly with the tasks that you have, or the direction that you're headed, and see what you need to do in order to get what you want out of life. But there's so much too in terms of respect. I said is one of the big things there, and I honestly think that is one of the things that is so important for children, especially. It's so often that children are just not really afforded respect and are never really given the choice about whether or not to engage with things. And having that respect and having that option so much of the time is really helpful in terms of providing the confidence later in life to actually be firm about setting your own boundaries and pursuing the things that you want to pursue. And then the other part of it is just so much of the critical thinking and literary analysis, which is one of my favorite kind of things to do in my spare time, is just to talk about a TV show or a book and really break down the themes and that kind of thing. So much of that is stuff that I learned either in my schoolwork or just in conversations with people at Banbury. And so that has been really foundational, I think, in my approach to life. It's really hard to say. I really don't have a lot of complaints about the teaching style or the environment. There were one or two teachers that I just didn't get on with. But even in that, the school itself was actually really accommodating, and I was able to kind of work around that really well as needed. So one of the things probably is just by nature of it being a smaller school, there's some things that are just a little bit beyond the realm of possibilities. So like I would hear my friends talking about being involved in like the dance program at their school or the drama program at their school or with their school sports and that kind of thing. And that's just not something that is plausible with the smaller setting. So even though I had my own extracurriculars that I was really involved in, it was one of those things where I never really got to do like school productions of anything or and so that's something that I think I maybe missed out on a little bit. But I also think it's one of those things that's just kind of fundamental to the structure of the school that you would have to change a lot about the other really good things in order to try and make something like that work. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of what I would say. I think being able to kind of look back at it with more kind of adult eyes. I really have an immense amount of respect for Diane, the principal's approach to problem solving and to maintaining community, because even now the idea that you can just sit down a student with their teacher just because like the student felt hurt by something the teacher said or doesn't like a particular thing that happens in class for like even the most arbitrary reasons, even now that's something that's really doesn't happen, and children are often just not afforded that level of participation in conversation and community. And so to look back and know that even 20 years ago, Diane was really firm about making sure that everyone's voice was heard and that everyone was given a say in how the community was going to exist is just really impressive to me. Yeah. And the other thing too is there are a couple teachers who are so dedicated to developing their syllabus to really speak to the children and are in some cases stretching themselves so thin because they just really want to make sure that the students are getting everything they can and that they're understanding, they're being taught how to learn and how to engage with things in such a way that learning is actually enjoyable and not just a chore. And that's one of the things that like you often just don't realize when you're one of those students whose needs are being met. But then to be able to look back and see all of the work that probably went into that behind the scenes is just really incredible. Certainly for anyone who struggles with a lecture style of teaching, even through university, I always had a really hard time staying focused for the time that I was just being spoken at. So having a shift to being able to just have the materials and do the studying on your own for anyone who has attention difficulties or anything like that, it's super accommodating. So that like that for me and for my family was really the selling point, was the kind of neurodivergent aspect. But as I kind of said before, it's also really great for just getting people to be self-sustaining and able to kind of support themselves without with support, with help from other people, but obviously, those are skills that need to be built. And I think that's one of the areas where public schools are frequently lacking. And then the other thing is just it's just a really nice environment. It's very relaxed. It's very friendly. Even when I was there for such a long time. Obviously, there were people that I didn't get on with, and there were people that I just didn't really like. But I never really had a major issue with anyone. I never really felt super isolated or attacked in any way. It was just very very friendly. You kind of just knew everyone, and mostly everyone just got on with everyone else. I don't know. I think it would really have to depend on what their concerns were. I know one of the things that we would sometimes see, especially with students coming in at a later age from public school, was just it takes a while. It takes maybe a couple of weeks or a month or two for them to kind of get into the groove of the school and to change from this really kind of regimented learning system to having something that was more fluid and a little bit more flexible. And I think that's something that people should be aware of going in, so that it doesn't feel like a panic moment if they send their child there and then suddenly they don't get any work done for a week. But I also think it's something that that is really good, because it teaches you a lot of really worthwhile skills in terms of just being able to switch your approach to things as needed, and actually kind of confront problems, confront obstacles in a more mature and a more responsible way than just kind of ignoring them and trying to push through them, to try and actually learn how to adapt a little bit more, which I think can be really important in later on in life. I guess just like don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to speak up. About anything, because questions are always good, and there's really no stupid questions, and not a lot of dismissive answers. So that would probably be my biggest one.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.